me to hit record, first of all, and then reminders for y'all. So, one is I know we recognize a lot of these names, and we have had the privilege to be able to already meet with several of you and your student, or just your student at this point. But if you have not been able to do that, or your student, we just want to remind you that we are here in the process and we want to be able to do that. And so, to be able to walk with you there, if you would, hopefully reach out soon to schedule that meeting. We want to be upfront with you. We are starting AP testing next week, which we know for a lot of students does cause uh, quite some stress and a lot of study hours there, but we are also the ones that administer that. So we are pretty packed for the next 2 weeks. But we would like you to be able to go ahead and reach out. That way you can get on our calendars. And like we said, it's always up to you if you want to meet with your student or you want your student to do the meeting on their own. We let you make that decision. A reminder, we are here during the summer when we all take vacation time, but we are here to help you. And so we don't want you to think, end of the year, we're gone and you're on your own. And it's not that at all. Another reason we want to meet with them is we obviously want to be able to help in the process, but it also just helps us get to know them. The privilege of getting to know them, because we also will be writing them a recommendation letter. So the more that we can speak to specifics is just a win-win for us and them. Another reminder, I know a lot of y'all have already signed up for Camp College. Session 1 is almost full, which is that first week, first full week in June. Then we have another week end of June, and then 1 week in July that still has spots. What is the purpose of that? The summary course description is helping your student know what they need to do that they don't necessarily want to do. We help them do that, get it organized. We spend a lot of time on the essays, which is a bulk of the application. It's the highlight for us to be able to help them and get to know them more through that process, but it tends to be the most intimidating part of the process. And so we want to be able to help with that. And then honestly, it helps them, I would say probably 70 to 80%. They are on their road as far as from the application process. They've started it, it's organized, and we help create a timeline. So that way it's not consuming the whole summer. We kind of say really 10 hours for Camp College equals about 10 weeks worth of work. And so we want you to be noting that option. I know we talked last time about testing. Knowing that those 3 camps we talked about last time, the camps being schools that they know they're going to require testing, SAT, ACT, the schools that are going to remain test optional, and then that camp of they are still announcing. Each of those 3 camps exist, and they are consistently growing. And so what I mean by that is we received an email today from Penn saying that they're going to stay test optional for 1 more year. We were on a webinar, I think 2 weeks ago, with Michigan State saying they're going to stay test optional for 5 years. And then we've already gotten schools within the past 2 weeks that have said, nope, we're going to testing required. So all of that to say, we want to help you navigate that and be able to make the most educated decision. Knowing that a lot of schools are test optional, and also a lot of your students, testing is their strength. And so we want to still remind students that they need to register. If they need to spend the summer reviewing, test prepping, in essence, those tests will then also be offered in August and September and October of next year. And all of those rounds of tests are considered within the application timeline before deadlines. And so just want to make you aware of that. Another one of the practical to-dos that we've asked your students to complete already at this point in the timeline is asking their teachers for letters of recommendation. And so what that looks like is they're asking 2 academic core teachers. They have to ask them in person. And then the next step is to write a thank you note. And then the third step is to put that request in SCORE. And so, if students need help doing that, we had one junior pop-in today asked that. It takes us about 30 seconds to show them, and then they're done with those 3 steps. And then we pretty much take over the process of that. We remind the teachers, we edit, and then we send. And so if they have not asked, that's one of those to-dos to remind your student that that needs to be done very soon, so that way the teachers have time to write those and do it well. I am now going to turn it over to Miss King, and she's going to focus on some different areas.
Let me unmute. That would help the situation there. Okay, I was trying to be really quiet, but thank you all for being with us today. We really appreciate you participating in this event. Hey, a couple things I want to talk about. The first being college visits. Now, I know for the most part, a lot of colleges have had closed campuses. You may have been able to walk around the grounds, not too many in-person visits, but those things are starting to change. Those things are changing, and a lot of colleges are now offering those in-person visits. And how you can schedule your visit is to go onto the college website. You can search their campus tours, and there's usually a calendar that will pop up, and it's all color coded, letting you know available dates in the future that they are giving tours. Some of them even have meetings with different departments that you can sign up for. Most everything is done online. So it doesn't hurt to go out there and start setting your plans and getting on a calendar to visit college campuses. And while I think this is the most important thing you can do for your child, I really think it's the best investment of a parent's time and money is to actually go on college campuses and have the student feel the college, see if it's really a fit for them. And kids come back all the time. You can hear it in their voice when they have found that campus that they truly feel that they could be at home with. So that's just something we really want to encourage you. And on my PCA, there is a tour, a college tour packet guide. And if you'll just log on to the parent group, it's under the bulletins right there on the left. You can get the college packet guide, and it describes the entire visit process, including questions that your child can ask while they're on the visit. And again, as Ms. Benavides says, with any of this, if they've got questions, your children are very welcome to come in and ask us questions, and we'll guide them through it. All right, the next topic I'm going to talk about is financial aid, actually the money part, one section of the money part, okay? And that is about who's funding college. And I know you might think that that's simple, and your kids have already predetermined that you are paying for everything, because there is no question in most of their minds how this is going to work. However, it could be a completely different story. And through my years of college advising, I find that it's best to start this conversation about paying for college with your child now while they're building their college list. There have been disasters in the past, and this is why I feel so strongly about this, where a student applies to several schools and everybody's excited and he gets admitted to these schools, and then we see the sticker price, and then we're not able to use that as an option because that doesn't fit the family budget. And that is, again, something on my heart. We're fitting this college fit into a family budget as well. So if your child understands expectations for them, it's much easier when we're making the list. Okay, some things to consider when you're talking about finances is, I know everybody gets a meal card, and we know we've got room, board, and a meal card, but there will be extra expenses. So will your child need a part-time job? That's something to talk about. Colleges have offer plenty of part-time jobs on campus, and of course there's off-campus jobs as well. So talk about those additional expenses, how much they'll need. And then one thing that's always a surprise, it was a surprise to a lot of people, is Greek life. A lot of your kids are going to want to belong to a fraternity or a sorority, and those cost extra. There's nothing when we're looking at cost of attendance that includes sororities, but that is something to keep in mind. That's an extra expense. And again, that's a good one that your child may need to fund themselves. And when I was talking about the total cost of attendance, that's more than just tuition. Okay, tuition is one element of the total cost. And you can go out on each college website and find the total cost of acceptance that will include tuition, room and board, miscellaneous expenses. Sometimes they throw in transportation to see what the estimated total cost is. And again, each college has that on their website, along with most of them have the net cost calculator, where you can actually put in some of your financial information, put in some GPA test scores, and some of the calculators will calculate what the merit scholarships your child will potentially receive due to that cost of the school. So that's something that we want you to be aware of. I don't want, all of us, we don't want you to shy away from private schools, okay? Because private schools, and we're going to talk about scholarships in a minute, but private schools do offer usually good merit scholarships that'll help reduce that price. And so therefore, don't get sticker shock in the beginning. Let's wait to see what that cost is going to calculate to. I'm going to talk about SCORE for a minute before I finish up with scholarships. Go back to money, of course, the most important part of this. As Ms. Benavides mentioned, your children are working in SCORE. They're adding their colleges, they're requesting their teacher recommendation, and they're completing surveys for us. And what's important about this, and SCORE is new to the juniors. Again, you might have heard it in a previous presentation. We talked about SCORE. It's our college application processing tool. By adding their colleges, we are able, the guidance counselors are able to see the colleges, and therefore we can make recommendations and help refine their list, their college list. I mean, we like to hear from the child what they're looking for, what they want in a school, and they have their list. And then we have recommendations sometimes to schools that they never thought about, depending on what the total fit that we're looking for. And additionally, transcripts are sent from SCORE. So we will eventually need all the colleges your children are applying to added to SCORE. And again, we're there to help them. It only takes a few minutes to show them how to do these things, and then they're off. They're empowered. They can go ahead and do this. All right, back to money for a minute. Back to money. Scholarships. Okay. I talked about merit scholarships, and merit scholarships typically are offered through the college's application, and either test scores or GPA, depending now if they're test optional or not, are considered in merit scholarships. And so that's something that in most cases is an automatic thing. However, a lot of colleges offer their own scholarships that aren't part of the application. And this is something that your child needs to pay attention to, because some schools have very definite scholarship application deadlines. And in some cases, those deadlines are before the application deadline, which is one of the reasons why we are so proactive about trying to get these applications submitted early, okay? And again, our internal date is October 1. We use that as a target date to get those applications in. And if they do that, and they fill out the scholarship information, they're covered in that sense. We bring this up because OU is a perfect example of what could potentially happen. A student can fill out the application, and then they're going to see there's some optional essays. Well, believe me, when a student sees optional essays, they don't want to do it. It's an option, right? But we tell them there is nothing optional in the college admissions process, okay? Because if you don't do those 2 essays for OU, your application will get submitted, but you won't be considered for any of their scholarships. So that's one where we know those short essays have to be done so that they can get those scholarships. We, for you next year, have individual scholarships or scholarships that come to us from organizations, a lot of local organizations, and sometimes colleges send us information about scholarships offered. The A&M has several Aggie groups that have scholarships, and Collin County has different scholarships. We post those on MyPCA, and next year you'll have access to the scholarship tile in the parent group, in the MyPCA parent group. So your children have access to it, and you'll be able to see those scholarships as well. We post them out there. We sometimes send an email to the kids saying new scholarships are posted. And so it's up to them to go out to see what other independent scholarships are being offered. And lastly, about money to help you out in the fall, we are having another Zoom meeting. It's going to be a Paying for College event, and we're targeting for September 27th. It's a Monday. It'll be about this same time, 12:30. And it'll be before FAFSA opens. You don't have to do anything. Do not start your FAFSA until October 1st. And that's why we do the Paying for College event. Prior to that, we'll answer questions, give you information, and we'll also send you a save the date and reminder so that you can participate in that event with us. I'll be looking forward to your questions later. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Moss with some important information to share.
I know Dr. Moss is having some Wi-Fi issues. Dr. Moss, you there? Okay. We'll go ahead and jump in. Dr. Moss, if you hear me, interrupt anytime that you want.
Somebody just asked to repeat for me to repeat the date of that. Well, it's the date of the Paying for College meeting. September 27th is our target date. We have an outside representative coming in. I'm confirming that date with them, but as soon as we have it set, we'll send you a save the date. Thank you for asking.
Yes.
What is the FAFSA again? I'm sorry, I didn't understand. FAFSA with an F, I think.
Yeah, that's the free application for financial aid. It's a federal government form and process where you submit your household income and finances, and then they let you know how much financial aid you would be able to get through the government. And of course, there's income restrictions, etc. But they review your income and let you know based on a expected family contribution, an EFC, how much you would be willing to pay for college, or you would be able to pay for.
Not willing.
Yeah, not willing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good clarification. So while we wait on him, I'll go ahead and cover one of his. Dr. Moss, are you there? One of the things he's going to say is just a reminder. So just a reminder, finishing well We know that motivation and energy sometimes can get a little low at this time, but just reminding your student that what we call the sixth semester transcript, which is the end of the junior year, those grades that are reported is that last snapshot that colleges see. And Dr. Watson's walking in here. So we are happy that he's going to join us. So I was just speaking into the sixth semester transcript and the value of finishing well this semester. And so I'll let you, anything you want to add into that sixth semester value?
Sure. Hi, guys. Thank you so many of you for being there. I apologize. I'm 10 feet away from Mrs. Benavides, and it's as if I'm in another world. So, which is where I tend to reside anyway. But thank y'all for joining. Really, just to Jody's point about finishing well, you know, sometimes we think of, as we come to the end of the junior year, that, wow, we're 75% done with our high school experience, or we're 75% done with our high school experience. But when it comes to the application process and the review process, we really are 90 or 95% done with the personal, academic, social, extracurricular application or profile that we're going to be submitting to colleges and universities. So in the spirit of what Mrs. Benavides was saying about finishing well and the sixth semester transcript, at the end of this semester, in other words, within a month, what your students are going to be saying to colleges and universities about the kind of student they are based on the transcript and their performance and their grades, that's what most colleges will be reviewing, for the simple reason that we'll be submitting applications mid to late summer to the early part of the beginning of the senior year. And so the information that students will be providing, both on their resume, if you wish, and also that we'll be providing on the transcript, is effectively through this semester and frankly through this summer, which brings us to the point of how might we continue to productively use this summer. Certainly with what we've all been experiencing, not just at PCA, but nationally and internationally, summer needs to be a time of some rest and some restoration. But the expectation will still be that our students have done something productive during time. That formal internship, we often like to talk about maybe read a couple of books, because commonly colleges and universities find that a student that's reading beyond the classroom, that suggests a certain level of academic readiness, but also a certain level of academic motivation that colleges and universities certainly like to see. It may mean work. Many of our students work, which is a very productive use of time. But the important thing here is that we keep exercising our brain as much as we're exercising our relaxation over the summertime. And so we would encourage some balance between renewal and restoration, but also doing some productive things that not only show the students' interests, but that would show colleges and universities what makes them interesting. So summers are important in terms of continuing to put together a portfolio that shows not only motivation and interest, but also investment in things that are about the greater good. So summertime and this coming summer is important. But to Mrs. Benavides' point, to finalize, encourage your students to finish this semester at school very well, because grade pattern is something that many colleges and universities look at in this overall process. And so we would simply encourage you to begin to partner with your sons and daughters in encouraging them to start taking ownership, not only of the college search, but maybe of how to do laundry, a budget a little bit, very practical things that they will need to know in a matter of months from now when they move from relative dependence on the family unit to relative independence, especially on what you have taught them and invested in them and on what the Lord has put on their heart. And so we understand that for some of you, this is a second or third or fourth sibling, and this is almost like always being able to ride a bike. For some of you, this is your first sibling. And so part of what we want to be empathetic about is an understanding that we're suddenly coming to the realization that a child, first child, third child, will soon be going to the next place that the Lord is calling them. And so as some of those emotions arise, don't feel as if they're misplaced in any way. This is a new experience every year for every child. And so we also want to be available to partner with you as some of those feelings begin to emerge. We would love to listen. We would love to also be of help any way that we can in that process. So we're here, whether it's how you're feeling about this whole new thing or new for this particular son or daughter. But we see ourselves as partners with you as parents and with your sons and daughters to help navigate this process. So we look forward to that. And I'm going to turn it back to Mrs. Benavides for a couple of things. And then I guess Q&A.
Okay, so I know Mrs. King touched base on that October 1st. Why do we set that as a deadline, as our internal deadline suggested for really getting in those top 3 to 5 choices? Just a couple reasons on that. For one, we want them to be able to be organized and motivated to get all that in and then enjoy the senior year and all of the other things that come with it. There is a large journey that happens that senior year, and most of that has to do with faith and them really, walking through where they will be. And so we want to allow space for those conversations to occur. And then just practically from a paperwork and all the requirements, we want to make sure that we're supporting them and, having time for them to check their portals. It's a thing called an admissions portal where we can go in with them, double check they've turned in everything that's required. We've sent what's required. The way we can partner with that, and it leaves time just for all of that. So all deadlines are met, and we don't have to have extra stress in that process. We will be able to have colleges back on campus in the fall. So we're super excited about that. So that'll give extra opportunities for your student to be able to ask firsthand questions. And then also we'll be hosting the Christian College Fair again in September. And then we don't have the dates yet for those public college fairs, but we'll be posting those as soon as we can. They were having a virtual summer fair. We have posted that on the MyPCA on the college and counseling tile on all the grade levels. So you can go ahead and see the dates for those. It's called the DARN, and that stands for Dallas Area Regional Network. They do a fantastic job of their summer fairs. So highly, highly encourage students to go and register for those. Really now, we just want to answer some questions for you with the time that we have left. So feel free to put them in the chat or just ask out loud. We want to try to get those answered between the 3 of us.
So if everything is done by October 1st, then what is the reason for the kids to actually like take AP classes and all in the senior year?
Okay, a couple things there. So all colleges on the transcript, what we do is we put the senior classes on the transcript when it's sent. So the colleges will see what the student is enrolled in. The majority of colleges require also a 7-semester transcript, meaning they want to see where the fall grades are and before they make a suggestion. And then some colleges, if a student ends up on a wait list or is what's called deferred, then they want to see continuation of the grades all the way through. And so for some students, it's a good thing to be in the AP. For some students, that's not necessary. We've got to look at the whole picture of what is putting that student in the best light from an admissions standpoint, because we're still weighing out GPA and all of those other things.
Perhaps what's also important, the expectation on the part of colleges and universities, and frankly, I think ourselves, and we would hope for students themselves and you as parents, is that students have challenged themselves throughout high school at a level in terms of rigor that's consistent with their ability. And oftentimes, not often, but occasionally we'll see a student that will not continue to challenge themselves in the senior year. And when the senior year is essentially a year that a student will do the least in terms of challenging themselves, it's almost a lost year in terms of being prepared and ready for college. And so we want students to continue to utilize the senior year. If that means APs means that they're continuing to challenge themselves at the best of their ability, then that is maybe the best college preparation for them. And so, and colleges and universities, a subset of GPA oftentimes is level of rigor. And the assumption is that that rigor continues all the way through high school. Does that help?
Yes, sorry,
Not at all.
I was typing something. This is my first year, so I'm kind of overwhelmed.
And Ms. Benavides, we might want to say, and you might have said it earlier, you posted the Camp College dates. Somebody asked, and we posted those in the chat. You register for those through Summers at Prestonwood.
Thank you for clarifying that. I should
Yeah,
have said that.
and thank you, Ms. King, for bringing that up. And my technical problems, I'm not sure what all was said. But it's fascinating when the senior year starts, how little time seems to be able either to be prioritized or is actually available to address the college application process. And so we think of a ratio of if students were to give us the 3 half days of Camp College, about 10 hours, finding those 10 hours is like trying to find 30 or 40 hours once the senior year begins. And so while we're not self-promoting this, we do find that the process is able to be one that can be accomplished well after the senior year starts if we've had this period of time with them in the summer through Camp College.
So a few questions that came up while Dr. Moss was speaking. One of them was, as you find out what colleges are test optional, will this be posted somewhere? So that is not a list that we're going to maintain just due to the depth and the quantity of schools, but we can help you decipher from your list and help you manage and if necessary, even strategy For example, some of our seniors this year, with some schools, the same student, we submitted a test score at one school, and at one school we didn't submit a test score, depending upon just the historical knowledge that we knew the school itself. So part of that goes into the discussion process. Now, there is one website called fairtest.org. That is a national website that does help organize that. And they have been around for a long time. Test optional itself is not a new concept. And so they have been around helping really promote those options. It's just become more widespread because of COVID. So that's a reputable website. And then as far as recommendation letters, so we really help the student think through what to teachers. And so what we're wanting is those teachers that are going to speak into the level of engagement for the student. So really speaking to what kind of student that is. So that doesn't necessarily mean the highest grade, but was that student, did they have grit and perseverance and willing to ask questions? That those type of teachers that can speak into it. So often when we're meeting with the student, that's part of our conversation is, you know, who are you thinking? Let's think through that. Okay, now let's go do the formal ask. So it's not a specific math and English or something like that. It's, we really talk through from the experience or anything to add to that.
No, I think that it's important to remember, as Mrs. Benavides said, it's not necessarily where you're performing the best, although that might be exactly the teacher that you want to ask. Colleges know how a student is doing in class from the transcript. So often what they're looking for in a teacher recommendation are character traits or quality traits or attributes about grit and responding to feedback and the kinds of things that aren't necessarily obvious in a student's grade on a transcript. And we're not suggesting that a teacher doesn't know that about a student in whose class they've done very well. But oftentimes where a student has had to work especially hard and something that didn't come as naturally, oftentimes that teacher is able to comment on a depth of character traits that perhaps another teacher might not.
Excuse me. Question is, will SCORE be updated with historical data? Yes, eventually. This year we've kind of lived in two worlds where our seniors are finishing up with Naviance and our freshmen through juniors are utilizing SCORE. And so that's a process, multi-step process. And so we're working with both companies on doing that. So our hope is that will be this summer, but I can't make any promises before June. So, but thank you for asking that. It's a good question. Any others?
And to answer the question about recording, we are recording this session. It will be posted on my PCA. And so anybody who didn't attend, it will be welcome to see the whole event.
This question hasn't come up, but I want to go ahead and ask it just because it's a part of our meetings when we meet. We do want to go with the student, we'll go through with the student on their U-Science results and talking through some of the things that they've learned or gone through in life calling and how that can also inform the college decision, possible major decision of really talking through that student's giftedness and skill set as far as really just naturally the way God has already made them and kind of starting to peel back the layers on that a little bit. And it's been really
What is that
helpful.
called? I'm sorry, I know it's in the life skills, but what is that specifically called?
It's in the life calling course and the student completes, it's called a U-Science. The
Thank
word
you.
U-Y-O-U, the U-Science assessment. And we go through those results a little more in depth with the student one-on-one.
This enables us to get a little more accuracy, I think would be the right way to say it, in terms of as you know, we talk about fit, academic, social, spiritual fit, and youth science is something that is a layer that we're excited about having added through the Life Calling class, because it gives us another layer of information, but also an important layer of introspection as your students move into thinking about colleges that are better or best fits for them. And so it's not an isolated course. It's intended to be part of the informed process of where next and what next in terms of God's calling on their lives.
Next question, when the transcript is submitted, does it include the student's ranking? So if the student is in the top 10% of the class, we communicate that directly to the college on their behalf.
What happens if the child doesn't know what she wants to do or where she wants to go?
That is hopefully where we can.
Punt.
Our desire is that we
Mhm.
can help speak into that. Now, we obviously cannot solve all problems, and we're never going to claim to, but there is some very specific questions that we are able to just start asking. And I liken it to, you know, when they were young and they went bowling, and the bumpers that we would put on the bowling alley is kind of what we're helping do, is create some bumpers, some guardrails as far as looking into that decision. As Dr. Moss was speaking into the youth science, going through that together and really kind of talking about the why. Why did those results come up? And then what are those career matches that are going with those whys? And you'll be surprised often how quickly we can move along that path within an hour with some questions that we're just used to. Often students know more than they think they do, and just need a little guidance. And
Well, and the important thing in the comparison culture, part of what drives that is their sense that so many of their classmates already know exactly what they want to do. And
Uh-huh.
that is about that's as common as not knowing, if we're honest with ourselves. And so even for students that have a pretty good sense of how they're wired and what they believe they are interested in doing, both in terms of a profession and in terms of their continuing ministry, we're going to still take them through the process of conversation to affirm that is something that they truly do understand what it entails and what that looks like. I think too often we unintentionally, and just the environment causes students to feel like they've got to come up with something, because this is the time in their lives where peers and parents and other family members start saying, where are you going to go and what you going to do?
Right.
So oftentimes students find that they just feel more comfortable being able to say something, but we understand that. And whether they really do understand well what they think they'd like to do or not, it's really the same questions that we want to walk through them with.
A couple questions that popped up. Is Camp College helpful with the essay? So thank you for asking that clarifying question. The bulk of Camp College is spent on the essay. We do a large bit of introduction into the essay. We then really dissect the questions. What is this question actually asking, and how do we respond with a narrative to that? And then they actually spend time writing the essay. Then that evening, that essay is edited for them. The essay is then given back the next day. They have time to ask questions, ask some clarification. What did this edit mean? What does this suggestion mean? Have some time to polish that. Excuse me. So they, at the end of the 3 days, they come away with 2 edited essays. So then they are ready to polish those, put the finishing touches on, and then also have an edited resume. They come to Camp College with the resume draft and we edit that, but the essays are actually written there. Another, when will you know about those assessments? Those assessments were completed within the class, so the student has access to those at all times. And then we pull those up during the meeting when we would a little bit more individually. And, okay, if the student is not in the top 10% of the class, do colleges require this? No, because we are officially a non-ranking school. And so we communicate that very clearly with the colleges within the transcript itself. There is a statement there, and also what's called the school profile that we send along with every transcript. So schools know full and well how a GPA is calculated. We're non-ranking. So that is communicated on the student's behalf. And
Ms. Benavides, related to the transcript was a GPA question on weighted or non-weighted GPA.
so the GPA on the transcript is an automatic weighted. So if a student has participated in any pre-AP, honors, or AP, that weight was automatically calculated into it. So officially the statement is PCA has a 4.0 weighted GPA. As far as how many essays, so we prepare them to write 2. There's a couple different reasons for that. There is one large platform called Common App that over 800 schools utilize, and so we have them write a Common App, and then often they'll be also applying to a school that's a non-Common App, and so just a little different in essay questions. So when a student has 2 really good skeleton essays, then they're able to tweak, adapt, depending on the word count, word minimum, those kinds of things. So typically that's why we have the students write 2. And I
And
think I've got all
fairly
those.
typically, or at least most students coming out of Kent College will have that 90% ready essay that they can still polish some for one of the Common App schools, because a very high percentage of our students will have among their college choices one of those Common App schools. And then most of our students will also do the essay for Apply Texas, because most of our students will also have an Apply Texas school on their application list. Occasionally we'll have a student that's interested in the University of California system, or in perhaps a college that has their own independent application itself. But typically most students are responding to a Common App essay or an Apply Texas essay. That would normally cover 75 or 80% probably of where most students are applying. We will work a little bit individually if students have a little different thinking about their application list on at least one of those essays during Kent College.
Any other questions? We just want to be sensitive to the time.
When will the essay topics be released, or have they already?
The Common App themselves is already released on the Common App website. If a student is attending Camp College, they're always free to go ahead and look through those questions, but we would like to really kind of speak through what those questions are really asking and kind of give some examples, and we do some samples essays for them also, but you can absolutely, the student can already find those.
Thank you.
Just to quickly ask about the student that does not know where she wants to go and what she wants to do. Does she go to you guys individually to talk to you, or is that you guys have already started that process?
The student just comes in our office, and the wonderful Miss Considine will be right there in the front. And that student requests to set up a meeting, and that's really just the first step. And then Miss Considine on our calendar, whomever is their counselor. So if the last name is A through L, it's Mrs. King, and if it's M through Z, that would be myself. And we really just kind of then get the ball going. It's a great
Okay.
question.
Yes.
Okay.
So, well, if you could set aside a time, maybe this summer, just to have a conversation with your sons or daughters, maybe looking at the U Science, so that no one is making an assumption maybe about what is or isn't there. And I think it could be very helpful for you parents. We like to think of it as even though we don't hardly ever eat dinner together as a family, but maybe just it could be a really good conversation starter about this whole process. Perhaps if you just looked at the U Science as an example together. So having that conversation alongside our having that conversation, either just with your son or daughter or with you and your son or daughter, that's an important, those are three legs on the stool that we really would hope that the conversation has been there with you and your sons and daughters, as well as we partner with you in those conversations in that process.
And I'm sorry to ask you this because I have where do I get the U Science again?
Your student has that account.
Oh, okay.
So they just log into their results. And then we also have that. So when the student's in here, we pull that up and walk through it with them as well.
On Canvas.
No, it's actually on a U Science website
Oh, I see.
directly.
And that was discussed and looked at from a general overview in their live calling class.
I see.
Okay. Well, Dr. Moss, will you pray us out?
I'll be happy to. Lord Jesus, we love you. As we begin to get our hearts and minds around this next thing that's in the lives of our families, let us together seek you first as this process begins. Give our students the courage to truly see this as a time to discover you more than simply choosing a college. Thank you for the certainness of your words and of your promises and of the cross, as these are seasons that can feel very uncertain. And the questions seem to have very few answers to them. So let us seek your certainty in this process, as well as we work with your beautiful children to help them discern, frankly, where God needs them the most next. We know we've covered a lot of practical steps today. As we move forward in partnership and as we lift you up and invite you into this process, let us have confidence that in each of these practical steps, you indeed are orchestrating each of those steps. Lord, we thank you for the privilege of working with these parents so that we might together continue to help their sons and daughters discover that which you have already planned for them since the day of their birth. We love you, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for your